Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Resilient Riches. Today, we are going to transform your life. Nikki Sharp, two-time best-selling author, former model, transformation coach, podcast host, every piece that you can talk about for somebody, Nikki Sharp emboldens, and she empowers people to live their best life, go through transformational changes, and really take advantage of what is inside you and really what you want to portray to the world. So, Nikki, we really appreciate you coming on from London, England, new resident of London, England. So we're very excited to have you. Nikki, you've gone through some stuff lately. First, how are you doing? How's the transition been? How's the move been? And give everybody your background.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I know that we've been chatting for a while and finally here. So, yeah, I recently went through a divorce. So I moved from Miami, moved back to London. I've been living in London on and off for 11 years, and just listened to my intuition to come. And because I was listening to that, things have been flowing. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges along the way. And something actually I wanted to say, that you gave me one of the greatest pieces of advice of anyone during my divorce in the beginning. And we were on a call, and I was talking about that, I'm stressed, I'm moving, I'm all of these things, going through the divorce. And we know that there are three things that will rock you to the moon and back. And it's if you go through a death, a divorce, or a move. So I went through two of those, and you really put my mind at ease about finances, because I was freaking out, right? As you do during a move and also during a divorce. And you told me that right now, like how everyone saves for a rainy day, right now is my rainy day. And I was like, oh, that's so true. And it took away the pressure that I had and that I was putting on myself of, I need to be impeccable with my finances and saving and being really smart with money. And it's not that I haven't been smart, but it allowed me to focus on the things that were important, which were just getting myself out, getting myself resituated, grounded. And then as we spoke again, a few months later, it's that one sentence had really given me the permission to not stress about finances, when finances are already one of the most stressful things that, I think we all kind of go through and deal with. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
So that's very interesting, because we actually just had a call yesterday with someone who's lost his father about a year ago, a bit over. And one of the comments that he made was that during that year, he couldn't really think about getting his finances in order. He couldn't really, it wasn't the appropriate time. But now that it's been over a year now, it's time for him. And that's true. I mean, there's, and my parents passed away. It's just, it's a process you have to go through. And same thing with divorce and a move of course, to a lesser extent.
So, Nikki, how are you coaching people to get through these challenging times? Because obviously you went through it, so now you have a lot more firsthand experience. Has your coaching changed, and how are you coaching people to get through these types of moments?
One thing I will say is that my coaching, everything that I teach, I actually got a question. I did a Q&A box a few months ago of what did people want to know about my divorce and what happened. And one of the questions was, did the divorce solidify the tools that I teach? And I posted a reel on it that absolutely everything that I teach, I have used over and over and then some during my separation and divorce and through the coming out phase of the freeze is really what I would call that. And it is, so I have a program called the Ultimate Transformation Program. It's truly life-changing. It's 4 months. And in September, during this group that I had, they were the only people that knew what was going on, because I couldn't publicly talk about things yet. And it was interesting because I would share with them exactly what I was teaching them, how I was using every single tool and concept, how I was using it in my day-to-day life. And I really can say, based on everything that I teach, it works. It works. And I'm living, breathing proof of it, that it works better than I actually could even have imagined. I get to see my clients transform, but I'm coming out of the freeze. And I think it's really important to tell people when you go through a really big life challenge or you're trying to make some sort of change in your life, there is going to be a moment where you do need to pause and slow down. And I actually completely paused my business. I paused my podcast. I paused everything because I knew that in order for me to come back stronger and come back as me again, because I didn't feel like me. And anyone who's gone through any level of trauma, whatever it is, you don't feel like you. And so I started to really slow down, which was scary as hell because I'm not making money. But oh my God, am I hemorrhaging money? It was going out left, right, and center. And so through all of that, I very much learned that my mind was telling me it was terrifying and scary to slow down. But by slowing down, it was the thing that actually allowed me to then speed up quicker so that I brought my business kind of up from the dead or the rest. And it's things are going better and more wildly. I don't want to say that word successful, but I have my vibrancy back and I have my vitality and I have the energy to do these things. And so now instead of looking at my business as I need to launch a program or I need to do something for money, I have a completely different mindset, which is I am so freaking excited to teach because I know that these tools work. And so I've changed the I need money, and you guys know when you need something that it's a needy energy. And money, what I've learned is that money doesn't like needy energy. And so now I'm getting to go into back into everything with a more vibrant energy of I'm so excited that I get to teach all of this. And I'm really seeing that being reflected in my clients. I mean, and it's funny taking a step back and slowing down and really trusting God and really trusting the universe that although I wasn't doing my coaching programs during this time, the universe gave me quite a few one-on-one clients. Like I didn't even have to put it out there or ask for them. They just came and said, Nikki, are you doing one-on-ones? And normally I don't do one-on-ones. So I was open to what was being given to me. And in that, I got to teach new tools and things that I had been using with myself and helping myself through the process. So I got to test these tools. And I mean, it's been the hardest thing without a doubt in my entire, and I've been through a lot in my life, and this has been the hardest. And I wouldn't have changed anything because of what I know now about myself, what I know now about people, about the tools. I understand people and relationships so much better, but more importantly, is I have a completely updated viewpoint on money, and money doesn't scare me anymore. And because money doesn't scare me and there's a different energy, I'm calling it in at a quicker pace. And it's fun. It went from being stressful, which it was, to now money feels more fun and it feels like a game because there's not this needy energy around it. So a lot of really big shifts that have happened and solidified what I teach.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about before money was something that needy energy can destroy making money. That needy desire to work really, really hard and working for money, and that actually traps you. That people fall into this money trap, or in sales, it's called commission breath. That people will constantly work for the dollar, but it's really that doesn't help you. That actually hurts you the most. But once you change your mindset about money, and that's really a big goal of ours, is change mindset, change the way that you approach money, talk about money, because it's part the richest people that we know and clients of ours and friends of ours, they don't work for money. They like money as a value for how successful they are doing. It's just a way to keep score. But if somebody's worth 30, 40, 50 million dollars, they don't need money to live anymore. They don't need money for their kids anymore. They don't need, their houses are typically paid off. I mean, which is not always the best financial decision, but they work for money to keep score. And that's when you make that shift, money stops controlling you, and the internal anxiety and the head trash can stop controlling you. Once you find that financial independence, how are you telling people what's the next
I
stage,
would
or
just
are
say,
you
just
now
before you go
changing?
on to the next question, I mean, I also love what you're saying, and that's true. Like whenever you need a loan from the bank, that's when you can't get it, right? When you go there, that's always the worst time. But that's part of our process is we'll do a lot of financial planning and financial budgeting. And that's the purpose of having that emergency fund, because people have emergencies, and that's when you know that you can have the confidence to rely on that emergency fund, and that you don't have to get into that panic mode. And and exactly what you're saying, like when you need a client, that's when you're not going to get it. So I also just go along with what Yair's saying. It's all very true.
Just going back to my question is, now that things have changed so much in your life, and your coaching and your style and the way that you think about money has changed so much in your life, are you putting that into your baseline when you're talking to people about transformational coaching? What has changed in your actual program, and what are the stages for somebody who's in a rut, or somebody who's trying to change their life around? What were your stages before, and what are your stages now?
So I'll put it into kind of a two-part answer. The first one, as we're just directly relating it to money, is the biggest thing that has happened, and this is what I said, is the mindset shift. And the only way the mindset shift was able to occur is that I had to, and not I had to, I chose to sit with the fears that came up in that slow down process. And that's where in the past, I haven't allowed myself to slow down because the fears were so great of, if I slow down, I won't make money. If I don't make money, I can't pay rent. If I can't pay rent, right, I'm out on the street. And so really sitting with it for the last few months in this pause period allowed me to, and one of the exercises I have people do, I call it court evidence one, is you write out all of your fears. And as you write them out, you start to see them on paper, because if they're just circling in the mind, they're going to continue. They continue to circle, and it creates this loop, a downward loop, a spiral going down, which on the emotional vibration chart, it starts with boredom, and then it starts going down to guilt and shame and judgment and resentment. And so if you're going down the spiral, which happens if we stay in the mind, you're screwing yourself. Versus when you actually get it out on paper, there's research, so much research, that you're able to kind of take that 30,000 viewpoint, or the plain viewpoint. And so for me, in that pause period, it was on many days each week, writing down what are the fear. I mean, even today I wrote down what are my fears coming up. And it allows you to kind of detach from all of these things that could happen. And I see myself and all my clients, we all get stuck in the what could happen, right? What might happen. And so for me during this process, it was really just sitting with it and being like, okay, here are my fears, my fear. And they're so irrational, but they're almost laughable because the mind makes them so real. And so I did my first ever investment. I bought a painting, and it's a painting that I've wanted since 2016. And while I was writing, I was like, I'm going to be on the street carrying this picture of Marilyn Monroe. And when you take a step back, you start laughing about it, being like, Nikki, you're not going to be on the street carrying this picture. There are so many steps that have to happen before that. And at any one of them, you can make a shift and a change. And so it's really sitting with the fears, because the fears are what control us. And I'll give you a quick story on this, that years ago, many years ago, like 2000, let's say 13, I was doing my taxes, and I remember, and it might have even been before that, but I was in the height of my eating disorder. And so I'm going through everything and putting them into, the buckets of what did I spend here. And I saw how much money that I had spent on food. And when you're in the middle of an eating disorder and you're spending money on the very food that is not giving you the results you want, stress comes up, anger comes up, fear comes up. So what did I go do right after that? Looking at my finances and being so angry at myself for how much money I spent, I went and spent more money on food and I binged to try to make myself feel better. And I can laugh about it now, but when you're in it, it sucks. But I can laugh about it now because that's the work, right? The work is to sit there and look at the fears. And when the fear comes up, how do you act and react? And so that's kind of part one of my answer. And then part two is a bit quicker, just in terms of the transformation. I have an entire process that I've created. It's a process, it's an equation. It works. It works because it's an equation. And this is where my mindset has also shifted with money. I'm like, money is just an equation too. You want more money in the bank, there's equations for that. You want more money in stocks and you want it to compound and go out. Like, that's an equation essentially. And so when I started realizing my program itself is an equation, like, you follow the program and you see the results. It's like anything. A diet is an equation. And you follow a certain diet, that is an actual equation. And so during this whole process, it really has just been follow the things that I know work and continue to do them, but also really taking a step back and focusing on, as I've said, the slowdown and just continuing doing what I've been doing.
So part of our process when we're talking to people and we do a financial deep dive with them, it's exactly what you're saying. People are all scared because it's not in front of them on paper, and that's the first step that we do. And we'll say about it. What about this account? What about that account? And they say, "Oh, I forgot about 100,000 I had in this account, or 200,000 I had in that account." All of a sudden, instead of having like $10,000 at their disposal, they've got like 3 million. Oh, I forgot about all of those things. But once you put it in front of them, and that's a part of our planning process, it changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't find 3 million loose change in their
I'm like,
pocket.
I'd like to find 3 million.
Yeah, I was
We
thinking that
should
too.
we
It's like,
should
yeah, I
we
don't
should write
know.
it down. Let's see.
Yeah, just
We
as long as you
will.
put it, as long as you journal it, you can manifest an additional 3 million. That's on the
It's
menu.
got to be. You just got to think about it. That's all.
It's a
Well, and
mindset. It's the
that's everything we're talking about, right? It
Exactly.
has to. It's everything starts in the mind, and this is something too that even during this whole let's just call it the pause. We're just gonna call it the pause process for me. And during this time, it was also looking at, okay, I have a few credit cards that I've had to use to spend a bit more money because of coming to London, moving. There were things that I had to pay cash for, like, my new flat and the deposit and all of that. So I have been kind of balancing out, okay, where do I spend cash? Where do I not? Where do I have money coming in? And that's really hard when you don't have money coming in necessarily because I've done this pause. But what I recognized was that I also had a limiting belief and a fear that, and you know, we actually had spoken that I had money in stocks, but I have money in stocks, but I have had this long lasting fear from my parents of, that's not money and not just my parents, but society. It's like, when you put money in stocks, like, that's, you don't touch it. That's out there. That's 30, 40, 50 years later. And so something that I really sat with, which was a limiting belief, was I do have money. I do actually have money, even though my mind is telling me you don't have money right now to pay off credit cards. And it's like, no, 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 that's not true. And so the funny thing is, as soon as I realized that, no, I do have money, guess what started coming in? Money, clients, literally clients just came into my life the moment that I realized, oh, I'm actually good. I'm okay. So everything is the mind. And that's what I teach, is I help people to understand what their mindset is, what their limiting beliefs are, because everything is in the subconscious. Our subconscious is 90% of the brain. Meanwhile, we're using 10%. So that's like using your computer at a 10%, like the operation side of it, your computer would barely function. And yet that's how most humans are living their life. And we're living off of these fears and what's going to happen and what might happen. And that's where it really is slowing down, sitting down, putting, numbers on paper, your fears on paper, what do you actually want as well on paper. And that's a part of the process that I'm hearing you guys do too, is like, you
Yeah.
can't
So
manifest something if you don't know what you want.
Right. So one area which is so common, and you probably come across this also, is so somebody will have $25,000 of cash in the bank, but they'll have $50,000 of credit card debt that they're paying 24% interest. But they want to have that 25,000, and the idea of credit cards is that you make that monthly payment, then you forget about it, but you're paying 24%. You're never going to get out of that credit card debt. And they want that comfort of having the money in the bank, but you really don't. So when you put it on paper, you want to make it 10,000 in the bank and pay off some of the credit cards. Find that such a common event.
Nikki, you're being incredibly vulnerable and incredibly open. Have you always been like that? Has this been a shift in your life in the way of that you think?
I've I've actually always been vulnerable and transparent, and it's what I call the magic pills is authenticity, vulnerability, and I've always been me. I've never not been me, and I think that's important to say because so many people that I work with and just people in my life and friends and even my parents, it's like they put on different masks for different people, and for me it's always been I am who I am, and I've never not been who I am. So I don't put on masks for people. Now, you know, am I maybe more, if I'm with my friends, I can cuss like a sailor, and if I go on TV, I'm not sitting there cussing, right? So it's like I can tone things up and down a little bit, but I've always just been me. So I've always been vulnerable and authentic. Now, I've learned to become, I would say, more vulnerable. And it started in 2013 when I began my Instagram account. And I actually used to post headless body shots. So photos of I would cut my head off in the photo, post that because I was scared that people would judge me. And I would talk very vulnerably about my eating disorders. Now, go figure, people are attracted to vulnerability. And so I started getting thousands and thousands of followers. And now so many people on Instagram are doing this. I've never changed that. But I remember when I first shared a photo of my face, I think I had like 30 or 40,000 followers at this point, and nobody had ever seen my face before. And then I was so scared. But now people could put a name to the body, to the vulnerability. And that's where my account just exploded. And so, something that is very unique, I would say, to me and my programs is I am so real about what's going on in my life to the extent where it actually makes some people uncomfortable because I'm just sharing me. I don't know. I'm just sharing me. But I've learned to hone in on when to share that vulnerability and how much to share and when not to, because something I learned is not everyone deserves to get to see me. They don't deserve my vulnerability in all senses, and that doesn't mean that someone's a bad person, but it just means that I've gotten better at reading. Like if I go into a party and I don't like big groups of people, I'm sort of antisocial a little bit. Like I'm very extroverted, kind of more one-on-one, but in big groups I kind of get I get a little awkward. And I've learned that in situations like that, like I don't need to go sit there and start talking about, oh hey, like I had eating disorders in the past and I just went through a divorce, and like I don't need to do that. So I've actually learned to ask more questions than talk about myself. And then if it opens up and someone's interested, then the floodgates open and I'm like, all right, let me tell you, what do you want to know? And I found that it really is a superpower because I'm not afraid to talk about the things that are typically taboo subjects and the things that scare people. And I'm like, okay. I mean, all right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the answer is yes, yes. And I've learned to hone in a bit more, but I really do believe that, and it's what I teach, being authentic and vulnerable and transparent, it will set you free. And when you feel free, you're not in the cage anymore. And that is where true freedom comes. And that's where you get to manifest all your dreams. And that's where you get to call in more money or better health or whatever it is. Like when you take off the masks of trying to please everyone else, like you guys probably work with so many people, I can only imagine, of those who spend money to keep up with the Joneses. And it's like, but why? Why are you doing that? And so I help people understand why are they doing that, and then really start to love themselves enough that they don't need to or want to keep up with the Joneses, which then saves you a lot more money, and then you can go buy things that you really actually want.
Yeah, that the real status is having millions of dollars in the bank. That's real status. It's not a new purse or diamond earrings or a new car or in some communities it's how many my wife is in a very keep up with the Jones and Zadez, like the Persian Joneses.
Mhm.
So I don't know how they call each other, but their whole thing was like, yeah, if you don't have six kids, like it's a popularity contest for how many kids you can have, and I'm like, that's insane. Like and it's not a religious thing, which in our communities, a lot of people just have a lot of kids because religious people have a lot of kids. But in their community, it's a competition of how many kids you can have and how early you can have them. And I thought that was absolutely insane. But you've been running this brand, and it's you. It's the Nikki Sharp. It's a sharper
It's
life. Everything is just
yeah.
you. You've been running this brand for a very long time. How did you build such a resilient brand that you can take this pause or this rest and then come back to it, and it's and your clients and your followers and the people that love you still love you? How is it that the brand has been existent and strong for so long when so many brands are they grow and they drop and they grow and they drop? And how would you advise people to build resilient brands like yours?
Great, great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before in that way.
Climbing, taking it to the win.
I would say a few different things on it. One, I have tenacity. So I have had more no's than I've had yet. I've had far more no's told to me. I have had far more failures than I've had successes. And this is what I see sets me up differently from other people is that it sucks. It's a gut punch when you get a no, right? When you're like, yeah, I scored that client or I'm going to make all this money. And yeah, here we were chatting the other, actually even earlier of like how many people are signing up for the programs. And I'm like, yeah, not the number I thought it was going to be. And what I've learned is that when something doesn't go as planned, well, one, let go of the plan because God might have a greater plan for you, and that's really what I'm part of the trust is. But it's having tenacity of I just keep going, and I've learned to adjust the sails on my boat when something doesn't happen the way that I wanted it to. Right, keyword want. I'm like, all right, let's just adjust the sails and try something different. Now, that's taken quite a few years to get to that mindset, so I don't have a failure mindset. I definitely have a growth mindset, and it has started because I guess I never started my Instagram or writing this detox. I never started it thinking it was going to grow. Like I have never had a business plan, by the way, and I don't know if I ever will have one because 10 years ago I could have never imagined that I would be here. But the funny thing is I would never trade where I am for anywhere else. Like if I had followed a business plan, I don't know if I would be here. And I really, really, really like where I am. But along the way, I have encountered so many challenging times, so many, like I've been in debt two different times, paid my way out of it, and been like, okay, I learned a lot of lessons from that. And so I think anytime that I've quote unquote failed, I learn something from it and I adjust my mindset or how I do business. And even like podcasting, I see so many people start podcasts. And I've even had to pause my podcast a few different times because of stress when I was in my relationship and not knowing that I was as stressed as I was, and then pausing it again. And what I have learned is do things because you want to, not because you have to. If you're running a business because you have to, it doesn't have longevity. Elon Musk is not running his business and Tesla because he has to. He does it because he loves it. And so loving what you do is paramount to anything in life. Like you cannot hate yourself into a successful business. Just as I say, you cannot hate yourself into getting the body of your dreams. You cannot hate yourself into getting millions of dollars in the bank. And I say that word because like we cannot hate ourselves into peace in the world. And people are getting it so wrong that hate does not equal peace. Hate does not equal freedom. We actually have to love ourselves and love other people. And there's a saying that I tell people, can you love yourself even if you don't like yourself? So can you love yourself even if you have debt and you're kind of beating yourself up and you're like, I don't like this. But the moment that you say, I hate myself because of this, boom, done, game over. Seriously, game over. And so for me, it's been learning, and with so many failures along the way, of, okay, that didn't work. Hating myself, hating my business, hating what I do, like that's not going to sell millions of books. That's not going to get all of these followers. I have to show love. Like I love my community. I adore them. They have, so many of them have been with me over the past 10 plus years. And I still manage my social media. And when I get a message, and I get messages often from people saying, wow, is that you? You're responding? I'm like, yeah, that's me. Hi. Hi, how are you? And because of that, you build trust with your audience. And there's nothing more important than trust. And so they know, my audience knows that if I'm taking a break, it is for a really good reason. But I also tell them, hey, I'm going to come back, by the way. I'm not disappearing. And so that's where, your actions do have to match your words, and your words and actions have to match your values. So my entire brand matches my values: authenticity, vulnerability, transparency. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because that's how I've built what I've built. And I continue, and the rocket ship is getting ready to take off. And now I can say I'm going to be the 10-year overnight success, because all of a sudden
Exactly.
everyone is going to be
That
like,
to my dad yesterday.
it's so good. Like
I
people look at
literally said
Katy.
that.
It's I love that you said that. Like people look at Katy Perry and they're like, oh, she was this overnight success. No, she wasn't. She was singing for 15 years before she became
They
an
always
overnight
say that.
success.
They always say it's a 10-year overnight success. But I also love what you're saying, and I think just the way that I hear it is that you don't let, you love what you're doing and you're committed to success. Everybody has the failure, but there's some that give up and some continue. But if you love what you're doing, you're not going to let your ego get in the way of continuing to get that success. So it doesn't make a difference. Something doesn't work just because I committed to it. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. It didn't work. I'm not going to let my ego stop me from shifting and redefining what I need and pivoting to let's try something else. Let's try something else. If that didn't work, we're not going to give up.
I was just going to say really quick, look at Elon Musk. He has had, and he even says this in his book, he says this all the time, the amount, and Jeff Bezos, the same thing. And there's a quote actually that Jeff has. I'm forgetting the exact thing, but
Yeah,
it's like,
it was recent. It was about the phone, the
yeah,
Amazon Fire phone.
I mean, he said that his is actually a business of failure, meaning that Amazon became a success because he accepted all the other failures. Elon Musk, he has had like he bought Twitter, turned it into X. Like, what is this? But like, what happened? That's not stopping him. It actually just makes him better and people more inclined to want to follow. Okay, what's he going to do next? And people trust other people when they are humble in their growth and in their failures and in their wins. And I think that's something that I've always been humble in my failures. And I'm going to say this again. I have had so many more failures than I've had successes, but that has made the success that much sweeter. And I've learned, like, for example, in 2015, I published my first book, the 5-day real food detox. And this came off of creating this as an ebook. I sold 100,000 copies of it. I was making like $50,000 a month in 2014. It was nuts. I was a 27-year-old with a ridiculously high ego, because I'm like, wow, I'm making all this money. This is amazing. It's not that it was coming from a bad place, but I suddenly found myself with this whole team of people sitting around a table, and I had lawyers and agents, and I was paying $20,000 a month to people. And I one day I sat back and I was like, what are you guys all doing here? And I let go of everyone. I got sued a few times in the
Oh, I'm
process
sure
of
they
it.
were
Let me tell you.
thrilled to hear that from you. I'm sure that was a
Yep.
thrilling thing to hear.
And so kind of cut to then when I turned this detox into a book, I put it on the wall. I was like, I'm going to hit New York Times bestseller. I had the date. I knew exactly it was, I don't even remember the date now. I manifested it. Guess what? I didn't hit New York Times bestseller. I was crushed because I'm like, wait, I thought I manifested this. I thought that's how this worked. And now that I look back at it, I'm like, thank God I didn't hit New York Times bestseller because I didn't have the right team in place and I didn't have the right mindset. I was trying to do it all by myself. And to have the greatest success in life, you need a team, you need a community, you need a support network. And I now know that. And I'm coming from the most humble place. Like 27-year-old 10 years ago, Nikki, oh no, she wanted all the success, which is fine. That's okay. I look back and I smile and I giggle at her. She's cute, but she didn't know what she was doing. And now I have like a P, and I don't know if it's a P, but I have an MBA in business. I don't have an actual MBA. I'm saying I have an MBA because I've just gotten my hands dirty, and the amount of things that I've messed up along the way, I'm like, oh, I know a lot now. And so 37-year-old Nikki is very humble about her success as well as her failures. And I think that's why people like to follow me as well, because I'm not sitting here being like, look at me, I'm the best. And there's a lot of celebrities that do that. We know that. And there's a lot of people I'm sure you guys work with that, right? They like to flash things. And it's like, yeah,
Love
that's not, it's not very cute when people do that. And so I just don't do that. I liked, but I also do celebrate my wins. And I tell my clients, like, I want to be flying private. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. That keyword, the how, I have no idea. But I know my goal, I know my dream, and I'm going to get there. I know that. I just don't know how or when. And that's what's fun about the manifestation process. And especially as it relates to money, is all of these things that I had as limiting beliefs with money. I'm like, oh, I just don't resonate with that anymore. How interesting. So it's a fun journey. And I think also people get caught up on being not being on the journey and just focusing on the destination. And for me, I'm just like, ooh, we're here for the journey. How fun. It's really crazy at times. It feels like a roller coaster, but ultimately I that's my really long-winded but hopefully good answer for someone
No,
of,
it's
yeah.
who's looking for resilience. But what I'm capturing from it is that to be a resilient brand, if you are fully authentic to what your actual values are, you will have ups and downs, and it doesn't really make a difference. People will follow you because they go, "This is who she is," or "This is who he is." Like Elon Musk is a great example. Elon Musk is going in a million different places, but why is Elon so successful? Because he still is that guy who jokes about and jokes about little video games, and he's still that little kid inside that still likes talking about different Star Wars and called his son after a rocket ship or a spaceship or something like that. Like he's still that guy. And it's fun to follow someone that goes up and goes down, and it's just who they are, instead of you always have to make a profit. If you are not making money today, tomorrow, the next day, then you are gone. And that's why businesses, when they go public, and I have a good friend of mine, he took a company public. His whole life was to take this company public. Took it public. It was one of the highest traded stocks on the NASDAQ. 6 months later, it went bankrupt. So he spent 15 years trying to make something. But then once he realized that he got into these numbers, and you see like companies like Vimeo and Roku and Airbnb and all these companies, once they lose their core value, they lose their core business. And that's really what I find that you're saying. What was the defining moment in your life, like that moment that you realize that you're going to make it, that you're going to be resilient? And I know you've went through so many challenges, but what was that moment that allowed you to overcome, I wouldn't say the smaller challenges, just other challenges, and you went, well, I went through this, I can get through all these other things. What was that moment in your life?
I don't think I have let me say, I have two answers to that. Number one is I have an exercise in my program called court evidence 3. So we do court evidence 1, which is all the fears, and then we do court evidence 3. And I called it court evidence because it's literally like you're going in and you're being the prosecutor and the lawyer, and you're defending yourself against being attacked. And so court evidence 3 is you come up with all these reasons why that limiting belief or that fear is not true. And so I've done this exercise so many times in my life. Like, I used to write down, I'm a failure, I will never be successful. And then I would write down, be like, well, that's total BS, Nikki. Like, look at all you've done so far. And I continue to do this exercise. Oh, it's not like I did this one and done. Like, I did this exercise during my pause period. And I would say, so that's part 1. Part 2 of my answer is, if there was like a single moment that I had to choose, it's not a moment per se. It's been a period of time, which has been this divorce and this start over, because it has been, without a shadow of doubt, the single hardest thing that I've gone through for multiple reasons. And because I'm testing now my financial fears and security. I'm testing, can I start, like, quote unquote, start over? Will I meet someone new? Okay, I'm doing this whole big move to London, and just, there were so many, and dealing with all of the learnings of why it didn't work out with my ex, and some really intense stuff that went back to childhood. So I would say, really, from like October until now, we're in May, it's been a period where I have been in this is the moment. This is the moment that my whole life has led to. And this is the moment where I'm like, of course I'm going to be a success, because I already have been. And I chose to leave an unhealthy marriage. Like, that in of itself, there's so many people that don't do that. And I'm like, that's one of the biggest wins that I've had. Okay, great. What else? Well, I listened to my intuition. That's right. I'm here. I'm in London. Amazing. And the more that I listen to my intuition, and the whatever, we all get it in different ways. For some people, they feel it in their gut. Some people, it might, like, for me, it's just like a sense of knowing. But the more that I listen to that, it's like, of course I'm being guided to the right direction. And it's this moment. And in this moment, I have lived my entire life up until now. And I realized that I wouldn't have been able to survive what I'm going through now a year ago. So it had to happen now. And because of that, and because I'm seeing so many things coming true that I've wanted for so long, it's in my mind doesn't even question, am I going to be successful? Because the answer is, I already am. And it's kind of, we go back to that needy energy. If I already am successful, then of course I'm just going to attract more of that, because I'm not needing success. I already am. That's it. But it's still, I want people to understand, like, I'm still going through it. It still sucks. There's still really, really hard days and moments where I'm just like, okay, what the hell happened? But through all of that, like, I'm making financial decisions. And I always ask people to ask themselves, where are you spending your time, energy, and money? Because if you're not seeing the results you want, like, people will come to me and say, I don't have the money. I really want to work with you, but I don't have the money. And I'm like, well, you're spending it somewhere. So is that getting you closer or further from what you want? And for me, it's been hiring on more help. So I just hired an executive, PA, to come over to my house, and she's kind of my right-hand woman. I'm like, yes, I'm going to pay her to do all of these things and help me organize and be at my house, so that I can actually focus on the things that I'm really good at, and not all the things I'm not as good at and don't like doing. So that puts me in more joy. That pays her money that she's also really excited. I'm like, it's a win-win for everyone. So my mindset has shifted so much from all of this that, of course, I'm going to be even more successful, because I'm not needing success. I want to take, as I said, I'm the rocket ship, and I just want to take everyone with me at this point.
Yeah, it's the most fun when you could do it with the people that you love and people that you care about. And it's an amazing moment to see. That moment is now, because people would put different moments on you, but it's really interesting. And what I found, actually, probably the most powerful thing that you said is, I couldn't have made it through this a year ago, but I could make it through, but I made it through now, which shows your test of character, and the reason why you're so successful is because you constantly build and constantly get better. Nikki, where can people find you? How can people get connected to you? We would love to say our followers should follow you, but you have about 700,000, so we wouldn't even make a scratch to changing anything. But
But one is better than none, and I say this on every podcast that I record too, is drop me a message, say hi. If I touch one person, even if it's one of you two, and I said one thing that resonated, that's it. I won. I don't. I'm
I
not
agree.
asking for more followers, but where can people find me? Nikki Sharp, NIKKI SHARP. I across the board on that's my website, that's my Instagram. But what's more important to me is the quality. And this, I actually want to go back really, really quickly and just say what has helped me build a successful brand is that I've never done it for the numbers. I've done it for the quality. So if you're going out and trying to create a business only based on numbers, you have to think about who are you impacting? Why are you doing this? So for me, when I get testimonials, and I don't even ask for testimonials, by the way, people just send them to me because they're so excited. And then I get excited because they're excited and they're excited because I'm excited. That's how you build a good brand. And I don't care if you're trying to take a company public, it does go back to the values and it goes back to who are you serving? That word serving, who are you helping? Not how much money can I make from this deal? I've never done anything for money. Yes, money is great. We all need it, but that's not why I do what I do. And so naturally that attracts more money.
Agree. Nikki, thank you for what you're doing. Everybody should buy your books. My dad's gonna do a 5-day real food detox. He's excited for
We'll
it.
see.
We'll have that discussion offline. But Nikki, we love seeing where you were and where you are today, and we're really excited to see your resilient path and you building success and resilient riches for your lifetime and all the people around you, and having people come with you on that rocket ship. So really appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you everybody for coming. We'll see you on the
Thank you.
next
Good
one.
to meet you.